Right. So today I'm going to sort of give a bit of background about my experiences and then give some ideas of how we can change as an industry, as well as just the individual level. So thank you, Sue, for talking about a lot more of the individuals and how they can help. So the first thing is, when people ask me what do, I say that I work in agriculture. And then what I've trained as is as a vet, but what I also do is many other things. I've taught at the Royal Agricultural University, so I was a teacher. I have some of my own sheep, so I do a little bit of farming. I do vetting, but I also do clinical work and I do consultancy. Okay? So what I find is my job is diverse. So I don't want to be just labelled as a vet, but part of agriculture. And I think that's the great thing about agriculture, is it's such a diverse industry, profession, and many different people can have many different roles in it. So first of all, what I want to do is just talk about what is racism. So, you know, people might have an idea of what is racism, but what really is it? Now, if we look at the dictionary definition, there's 3 elements to racism. The first one's prejudice. And what is prejudice? And prejudice, okay, is you believe something without actually having any evidence to prove it. So you might, you know, things like stereotypes and having an idea about what someone is going to be like without actually meeting them, without actually talking to people from their community or people like them. So that's prejudice. That's the start of it. Then there's discrimination. So discrimination is when you put that into action, when you put your prejudice into action. So it could be things like not giving someone a job, okay, based on something that might not even be true. The final thing is antagonism, going against something, okay, and being obstructive. And again, that can be based on prejudice. So again, we might not have any evidence for the action and for being negative about something. And these 3 elements are what makes up a dictionary definition of racism. Now, these 3 things can also apply to any other type of isms. So when we talk about racism, you know, again, you know, sexism, okay, again, it can be a similar sort of reasons for why these things happen. I think all 3 of them come down to 2 things. The language we use, we write, we see, and the action that we actually take, both for and against it. And I think that's what makes this quite powerful. So racism, I've suffered racism, okay? I've done everything I can to get into this profession. I've worked on farms, I've qualified as a vet, I've tried to get as much different experiences as I can, talk to the right people, but I've still been held back in many ways. I've still faced different types of racism. But again, for someone who hasn't faced racism, what does that look like? Now, people, you know, when England are playing abroad recently, you know, the recent Chelsea match, we find monkey chanting, actions like that on the football pitch, and we can say, oh, that's racism, because that's obvious, isn't it? You know. Recently, you know, last week when we saw the anti-Semitic graffiti or the Islamophobic graffiti, we can call that out. You know, that's not right, writing all that, that's obvious. And the posters and things like that we use by different people, or when we see imagery that tries to make us believe that something is wrong, again, you know, we can call that racism. And for that, you know, if we talk to a lot of people, people will say, yeah, that's racist. But are these things racist? So my name, okay? So we can all speak English. We've all got a good grasp of English. We all learnt syllables, okay? So if you saw that name and you smirked at it, you laughed at it, is that racist? If you just saw that name and said, oh, I don't know how to say that, can I call you something else? Can I call you Steve? Anglicize my name. Is that racist? Okay? If someone sat there and actually tried to say my name and got it wrong, is that offensive? Okay. Okay, the next thing. When you meet somebody and you say, where are you from? And they say, I don't know, I'll say from Edinburgh. But where are you really from? well, I went to school somewhere else. No, but where are you really from? And constantly going down the road. Now, is that racist? Now, referring to me as coloured, is that a racist term? Now, some of you might know the answers, some of you might not know the answers. Some of you might already have opinions on this. And that's the thing. What do you do? How do you find out? Where do you go? So hopefully that's what I want to sort of talk about, okay? Because I'm not perfect either. I've made mistakes in my past. But I've had to try and learn about some of the mistakes I've made and change the way I talk about some things. And again, there's not one place where you go and there's the answer. And I think that's the interesting thing about tackling discrimination and tackling prejudice. The one thing I want to talk about is racism is part of a lot of different groups of people. And again, some of the barriers for race can also be barriers for working class. For example, in this country, okay, out of the working class population, 45% are ethnic minorities. So dealing with the working class barrier can also deal with the ethnic minority barrier. So remember, it's important to look at them individually, but also think about what groups face the same barriers. So in the veterinary profession, in 2014, I'd been working for a number of years, and I'd faced all sorts of discrimination and racism and prejudice. But working in the industry I have to work in, I have to try and get a name for myself, and I have to get people to believe in my skills, okay? So when I face it, I just take it. And that's what I've done throughout my career. And then I hit a point. I felt I'm good at my job. Why should I put up with it? So in 2014, after a serious incident, when I got undermined massively, and no one supported me, I tried to find help, and nobody would help me. So between 2014 and 2016, on my own, I kept trying to fight for somebody to say, why can't someone talk about racism and talk about how do we support people who face discrimination? I got so far, and then in 2016, I formed something called BVEDS. BVED's the British Veterinary Ethnicity and Diversity Society. So me and a colleague up north, and she had been facing both gender discrimination and racial discrimination, decided we'll get our heads together and let's work together. And with a society behind us, we might have more clout. Our aim was to promote veterinary medicine, okay, to as wide a range of people as possible, but also create awareness of the problems of racial discrimination in the profession, okay? Then what we wanted to do is provide support for the people facing discrimination, but the people who wanted to change, the people who wanted to learn, signposting people, finding other organisations that can support us to support people in the profession. And with that is the education as well. Where do people go and find out answers? Where do people learn what language to use or what to do? So we started a website, and that's our website, bveds.com. We started a Facebook group, and we've got an open and a closed Facebook group. So the closed Facebook group is for people who have faced discrimination and them to sound it out to get advice. But we've also got the open Facebook group where we share articles and such like. We have a Twitter account, so we've got a lot of different organisations that we tweet about and different things going on in the industry. And we've got an email address. So if anyone wants to contact us, they can. And it's proved quite useful, actually, because, with BVEDs, it's not just, when we talk about ethnic minorities, we're talking about European vets as well, because they face discrimination as well. And we've had a lot of, Polish and Italian vets come to us, talk about their issues and how to support them. The big thing about it was we had to try and change culture in the industry. Now, we can't keep arguing or talking or discussing with each individual vet. What it has to do, it has to come top down. So we started working with this Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons and the British Veterinary Association, and we started working groups with them. So the Royal College sets the standards, the BVA support the vets, okay? With that, then we went to BSAVA, the British Small Animal Veterinary Association, and again, in their congress, we started the conversation. We went up the stage and talked to their vets. We also did that at the British Cattle Veterinary Association last year. At the London Vet Show, which is the biggest vet show in Europe, we started a conversation as well. We had an invited speaker to talk about inclusivity and diversity. next 2 weeks' time, I'm going to be talking at the Society of Practicing Veterinary Surgeons, and the British Equine Veterinary Association, for the first time ever in their history, put in a number of questions in their member survey about discrimination, because they told me there's no such thing. And I said, do you know that? Let's ask the vets who practice. We also write articles, so this is in the Veterinary Record. Start the conversation, get the media involved, get people reading about it. Okay, that's the Vet Times. So we've got other people to write with us, so we supported people who wanted to talk about it. The American Veterinary Association were interested in what we're doing, so we worked with them and did a podcast with them talking about discrimination and compared the US and the UK. And we did live Facebook groups as well and live Facebook podcasts. So that's with the British Veterinary Association president, who's on the right. And the BBC recently are interested, so if anyone's dealt with the BBC, they're all about diversity and representing different people. So I've done a couple of radio things with them, done a couple of videos, and there's something coming out next month as well with the BBC. But again, it's creating that conversation, talking about discrimination, which is a difficult topic to bring up, but I think we need to start talking about it before we can start thinking about how to deal with it. Again, I'm a trustee at St. Werburgh City Farm, and I thought, why don't we look at the barriers of ethnic minorities doing horticulture? So we've just won an award, a grant to look into those barriers, do a survey, and this sort of research will be useful for the whole industry, you know? So again, there is work being done on that front as well. So I started in veterinary, but as I work in agriculture, my passion is I want others to join our industry. I want others to flourish in our industry. And so therefore, our industry has to be welcoming and has to be ready to have different people and different minds. So why is this important? The first thing is the legal case. We've got the Equalities Act 2010. So legally, we can't discriminate. The ethical, moral reason, you might be religious, it just might be a moral compass that we respect and we support our fellow humans. And so therefore, playing onto that as well, that's part of us being us. Business, okay? So if we think about the UK, currently 50% of children at school are from a black and minority ethnic background. 33% of children in the whole country are from a black and minority ethnic background. The black and minority ethnic population in the UK is bigger than Scotland and Wales put together. Now, can you imagine agriculture in this country with no Scottish or Welsh representation? No. Yet, you know, we haven't got much minority ethnic. A Runnymede study, and there's another policy exchange think tank, predicted that in 2050, the population of the UK is going to be 36% ethnic minority. Okay, and that's not a long time away, it's 30 years' time. So we've got to start thinking about it now to embrace and get the whole country behind agriculture, because at the moment, we've got some of the country, but we haven't got the whole country. And there's plenty of studies that show that a diverse workforce has better culture, mental health, profitability, retention. And, you know, even in the construction industry, in the army, they've done their own studies and they've proved the same sort of thing. You just have to Google it and you can see what they're doing. And, you know, the construction industry is very monocultural. You know, the army has been and is changing. So, really, my passion is agriculture, and that's why we're all here. And we want our industry to be as strong as possible. We want to compete against other countries in the world. We want to show what we can do, okay? And to be the strongest, we need the whole country behind us. We want the best talent in our industry, okay? We want to recruit and grow this talent. And we want different thinking, different minds to really, you know, think outside the box, okay, and push our industry. Agriculture is such a diverse industry. There's so many different jobs that you can do in agriculture. And therefore, if the industry is so diverse, why aren't the people? You know, even IT, banking, genetics, all those different industries that can all be involved into agriculture. So we need to think about that, our workforce. Change has got to happen across the UK sector. So in agriculture currently, 1% are black and minority ethnic. In the veterinary sector, only 3% are black and minority ethnic. So the veterinary sector and the agricultural sector are very similar in where they are. but we know the population of the UK is changing, okay? And we know the world is changing, and so we need to start trying to recruit them. And we've got all these school children that are going to soon think about a career, are going to think about where they want to go. So we need to encourage them to come and join our industry. We need to attract and retain them. And I think the big thing is we need to be an inclusive industry rather than a diverse industry. And the way I think about that is diversity is if you have a party, you invite everybody to your party. Inclusivity is when you get everyone to dance, okay? And that's what we need to do. We need to have the diversity and encourage them to work with us and together. And to do that, we need to work together to increase awareness of the problem, awareness of what our situation is at the moment, and therefore provide the education, provide places for where people can find the answers. And remember, if you go back to the original slide, of those 3 questions, is it racist or not? Find out. Go and read, go and talk, go and ask. And there needs to be support. Where can people get supported? Both the people that face this problem or the people that want to change or that want to make a difference. You know, whether you're a big company or a small farm, how do you learn about it? Where do you go? And I think these things need to be available. Okay? And it doesn't happen overnight, but it has to be an industry thing, and it has to be top down. Okay? And remember, language and action matters. So think back to those original comments I made, if it's racist or not. If it's not racist, how does it make that individual feel, though? And when Sue was talking, think about what she said about that as well. How does that make me feel when people do that? Thank you very much. And so I hope that's made you a few more things to think about. But if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer.